And that is the one reason that we're going to talk about on different aspects, like including basic facts of life, societies, organizations, individuals, and evolution of ecosystem on which engineering firms can operate in Pakistan. And this is the topic that we're going to talk about. And to have a session sharing the areas of expertise for this, we have a very renowned senior technical advisor from World Bank, working as in social protection and jobs, and Mr. Najam Jammy. Sir, I welcome you on our NESPAC prestigious platform. About the introduction, let's have a look at the achievements Sir Najam Jammy has achieved so far. He's a recognized expert in energy efficiency, environmental management, institutional development. He has been working as senior technical advisor at World Bank in Pakistan. And along with it, he has been a program manager, civil society program at the Al Khan Foundation, Pakistan. He has also been a part of Planning Commission, Ministry of Water and Power, and Ministry of Environment for 8 years as a senior federal government officer. Sir, we welcome you here. I have been able to give only a short, though you are adding up with lots of massive and extensive managerial experience. And we surely would love to hear lots of informative things about the topic. Now, I request you to please proceed with the session, and I request my participants to please join us, and let's hear from Mr. Najam Jammy. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm very honored to be invited by NESPAC for this webinar today. I've known NESPAC for the past 30, 40 years and have been interacting with it a lot in the early days. But recently, because since I went to the World Bank, the interaction has reduced a bit. So I'm not very well aware. So this webinar is not about NESPAC. It's about my observations, experiences in life about various things. And it's not a recipe, or I'm not like a doctor that who's giving you a prescription for anything. So if you can learn something from it, it's great. Because talking to an audience like you, who's highly qualified, very senior people with diverse backgrounds. So you all have your own perspectives about life and work. So I'm just giving some ideas. It's not anything specifically about NESPAC. It's about the future of large engineering firms in this country. In a post-COVID world where things would change a lot. And I'll tell you some of the things which people are talking about around the world, how things will change, what new opportunities will emerge, what previous things will be eliminated completely, and you would not be able to do that. Just like when color TV came to Pakistan, after a few years, you don't see black and white TV at all. You don't see these things at all now. So many things have been eliminated. So also these are all my personal views. These are not World Bank views or in any way. So please do not construe that I'm talking on behalf of World Bank. Plus, I don't know, Sabika, what is the format? I mean, generally, would you like me to continue talking? Because many of us, including myself, cannot listen to somebody for 1 hour sitting silent, because then I would start looking at my WhatsApp messages. If somebody wants any burning question in between, then please do intervene. I have absolutely no issue with that. In fact, that's more interesting. Make it interactive.
So this will be for 1.5 hours. It will be only you will be delivering your session, and then at the end of once the session will get end, then we'll be asking people for question answers. So it will be right now there will be no interruption from our participants, and you can go up with your things, and then we will end up with the question answer session afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for the explanation. Maybe I will not talk for 1.5 hours because that might be too much, but let's see how it goes. And because I think there should be more time for question answer also, so that people can get clarification. Plus, they should also give their viewpoints. So maybe we can start with slide number 1. This is not slide number 1. This is, I think, number 2, the previous one, where we have table of contents. So very quickly. So I'm going to cover 6 things today, as you can see here. To start, 3 basic facts of life. I mean, these are my observations about life. They may not apply to your organization, but generally to our society, to our lives, to various types of organizations. There can be other facts of life, but these are three which I thought were very important. Then there's a big debate about who's more important, engineers, doctors, civil servant, comparison among them. So I'll talk about that also. And then something about generally how organizations grow and then get eliminated, or they revive also sometimes. So how that happens and what has been the Pakistani experience. Then we'll talk briefly about the ecosystem or the environment within which engineering firms have evolved in this country since 1947. And what is the environment within which they operate and how that environment keeps on changing. And perhaps the firms do not change or they change. So we'll talk about that also. Plus, after COVID-19, what has changed in the world? There have been tremendous studies that how businesses will operate now in a post-COVID world. Is this thing going to be a short-lived thing? Will it be forever? What is it all about? So there's a Pakistani gentleman who's done amazing study. I'll talk about that and I'll tell you about all about that. He's a civil engineer, by the way, living in USA. He's one of the youngest professors ever when he became a full professor in US. And then the last is, which is of course of perhaps greatest interest to all of you, that how can engineering firms progress in a post-COVID world? So obviously these are all my personal observations and I've not done a PhD in this subject and you might have better ideas even. So the whole idea of this webinar is that you would also come up with some ideas and counter arguments also, which will be very productive and interesting, and I'll certainly take note of that. So if this is good enough, then we can move on to the next slides about 3 basic facts of life. Number 1, everything is possible. People have done everything in this world. In our daily, starting from an individual to organizations, to societies, to nations, to civilizations. But for everything, you have to pay a cost. And you have to also bear the consequences of that, both positive and negative consequences. So we're not talking of good and bad here. We're talking of everything is possible. So if I want to kill somebody, yes, I can definitely, I'll find means, but then I have to bear the cost, the implications. The law can seize me, can put me in jail, can hang me also. So what I'm trying to say is that people have to, like, let's give you a more practical example. In Pakistani society, governments are very, very miserly and they do not want to spend money. We have huge energy crisis. Because of that huge energy crisis, industries cannot run, people cannot progress. But the government is not ready to pay the real cost. I mean, what government is doing right now is the production cost is higher than the cost they are recovering from the clients, for customers. It's a major loss-making venture. I'm quite sure that if you provide guaranteed energy to people at a higher cost, spend money, you will have much more dividends, much more profits than by not providing it or by irregularly providing it. It does not build investor confidence in the country, does not build any potential for the economy to grow. So what I'm trying to say is that you can do many things, everything, but we have to invest in it. We have to pay cost. Why I'm saying this fact number 1 will emerge later on also during discussion when we'll talk about other things. For the time being, let's park it here, that we can do everything, but we have to pay for that. Next, it is very difficult to change the DNA, the basic, sorry, you have gone forward. We have to go back. Although we should go forward in life, but right now we have to go back. Okay, so in societies, this is not in my control. Somebody is moving the slides. Can we go back? Yes, thank you. It is very difficult to change the basic structure and thinking, way of working of organization societies. I'll give you a very simple example. Large number of chartered accountant firms around the world 20, 30 years ago had to change their way of working because there were softwares available to do accounting for you. There was no need for chartered accountants anymore. It was except for very big companies who have to look at laws to avoid paying more taxes. Otherwise, generally, people didn't need. So the majority of them have become management consultants. And in Pakistan, all the top chartered accountancy firms of the world have their offices here. All the big 5, big 7, whatever you call it. But it's very interesting when you work with them on whatever subject, whether it's social sciences or anything else, they have a very audit-oriented approach. They are just counting and making tables. I mean, I've seen it so many times. It's amazing. They bring a very, very audit-oriented approach to that. Similarly, I found some international engineering firms in Pakistan who have gone into management consultancy and they're trying to do social sector projects. It's a very engineering-oriented approach to work. It's very difficult sometimes. What I'm trying to say is that if people stick to their main line of business, perhaps they would progress more. It is very difficult for organizations to make major changes unless you reincarnate, you get totally new people, change your name. People who excel or organizations who excel, look at Aga Khan University, Aga Khan Hospital. They don't claim that they're doing computer classes or engineering in the evening. They just focus on being a medical facility, and that's it. And they excel in that. So you have to, unless they want to change their line of business totally, and they say we are no more a hospital, we are a training institute for paramedics. That okay, that's something which is similar to what they've been doing, but generally you should stick to what are your main lines of business, and within that you need to operate. But again, organizational culture, I'll come back again. Again, there are issues. Even if you stick to your line of business, your internal working style. For example, ministries in Pakistan, both at the federal and provincial level. I'm not talking on behalf of World Bank, but this is I've worked in ministries and I've worked with them all the time, and been working with them. Basically, they're trained to maintain status quo. They're not research institutions. Ministries are not research institutions. They're not service delivery organizations. They're not professional organization in a specialized area. They're journalists. And by maintaining status quo, maintaining status quo is not an issue sometimes. For example, there is an accident, major accident, many people get injured. So the first thing is that you stop bleeding. At that time, you're providing first aid. So ministries are like that. They try to avoid, I mean, they're not trained to progress. They maintain status quo. So when they interact with organizations like NESPAC and medical universities and other professional institutions, it is very difficult for them to comprehend your way of working, because ministries are designed like that. That's their DNA. They sit on things. I mean, this is how they were designed, and they were designed because the British bureaucracy in Pakistan or in the subcontinent, when they came here, there were few thousand people who had to manage millions and millions of people spread from Peshawar to Calcutta. So they created a system in which when an issue comes under consideration, several people have to sign on it, a file has to start moving, and it goes up and down. By that time, the Mr. Britisher who is in charge and who's in Calcutta, he will be able to reach Peshawar to manage that case. By that time, the system was designed, several people have to move files from here to there and there to here, and at snail pace. It was a very conscious design for a nation which was a colony and being managed by a few hundred or maybe a couple of thousand people who were from UK, and they had to design that. This is how the DNA of the bureaucracy still exists. You see, a section officer will send a file to federal secretary. It goes through so many desks. You all know that. We all know that. We've been running around behind those files ourselves. I've also been running around. Then it again travels back from the secretary to the section officer. That takes whatever amount of time, and it is an amazing system when you look at it. And most time consuming, most lethargic, decisions are not taken. But this is the DNA of those ministries. No matter what you call them, you keep on changing their names, you keep on changing titles of section officer is called friend of the nation, whatever you may call him, he will remain section officer. He will definitely remain a section officer, no matter what you call him. So this is also, it will feature again. Why I'm talking about these things? Because I'll talk about them later again. These effects impact organizations like NESPAC. Number three, people sometimes wait for a demand before they can supply their services and products. No, you can create. I mean, look at mobile phones. When mobile phones came to Pakistan, was there a demand for mobile phone? Nobody even knew what is a mobile phone. And when it came, I said it was 100,000 rupees the cost, and I was in grade 19. My salary was 8,000 rupees. So I said, one year's salary, we will not be able, nobody will buy this. But now you see, they created a demand. They knew that there is a dearth of facilities. So there are a lot of things. So organizations, large organizations, sometimes feel that there is no business for them. There are problems. Everybody is against them, but they have to create demand for themselves. There are a lot of latent demands in society. There are a lot of needs which have not been fulfilled in this country. I'll again explain that completely. There is so much work to be done where nobody has gone. You cannot simply rely on old models of working. They were great, but all of these things keep on changing. Demands change, people's needs change. So your products and services have to be modified accordingly. Again, I'll explain it when I go to other slides. But for the time being, this is what I wanted to present as three. There could be other facts of life, but let's move forward. Next slides, please. Oh yeah, there's a big debate in society among engineers. I'm part of many, I'm basically an architect, but I did environmental engineering from Japan. So I have interaction with large number of engineers. And there's, when we meet professional associations and different groups, and people say, oh yeah, doctors, civil servants, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, unki society mein engineers. But there are reasons, I'll tell you why. First of all, a doctor or a government officer, every individual in Pakistan, whether he's rich or poor, will one day have to face them or keeps on facing them. Engineer at an individual level is very difficult unless a person like me is making a house. So I have, there is a requirement I should have a structural drawing submitted. It's a low level activity. I'll find some friend or some, I'm sorry to say that, but some low level consultant. And I'll give more money to architect. He also gets somebody. That's about it. Generally, engineers के साथ individual का interaction नहीं होता ना इस तरह. It's very difficult कि petroleum engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, and other geotechnical scientists, individual poor people, they don't interact with them. They have no requirement. There's no societal need. But the poorest of poor, when their children are dying, they're running after doctors and they think these doctors are gods. They're saving lives. So that's a daily interaction. Similarly, you go to, at every step, you have to meet some low level or high level government officer. You have to get your things done. These are individual needs. So don't worry about that. Plus, engineers do large number of things which are unknown to people. They're always behind the scene. The ones who are more like on the stage are different people. Engineers working in deserted areas, in wilderness, erecting these electrical towers, working in on these mines and other places, extracting things, oil and gas. These are not visible to people. They're not on TV or any channel. During COVID, all types of doctors and other people were on TV, but no engineer is on. I mean, they might have designed ventilators locally manufactured. I know so many in NUST and other places, people have done tremendous work. They're not featured anywhere. Their work is not visible even. Look at a house, your electrical cables, sanitary pipes, everything is embedded. It's not visible at all. What is visible are curtains and furniture and paint and these things. Their work is not visible to society, but they have tremendous role in national development, infrastructure development, without which a nation simply cannot progress, simply cannot progress. Then there is a role of professional associations, Pakistan Engineering Council, Institute of Engineers. There's so many other different trades of engineers for which they are separate. Their role in reaching out to society, informing society about the role of engineers in national development. People have no idea. I mean, generally, very few people know about the variety of these topics on which engineers get their degrees and they work. And I know so many of the people who are working in various places, but they're unknown to society and they've done tremendous work. So I think there is a need for public outreach, interface, and also informing people about the role which engineering can plays in national development. It has huge. They say that if you want to see a society's development level, then you should look at their means of transport and communication infrastructure, which includes even telecommunication and other. And you can see, I mean, how people travel in flimsy buses and other. So what I'm saying is that engineers do things which are larger societal needs, and they may not be individual needs or not felt by individuals as needs. So I think this element also needs to be highlighted. And there's a great responsibility on professional associations to talk about these things and be on the TV and everywhere. And so I think that will be much better rather than doing webinars and seminars for each other. They should reach out to society. Next, please. Yeah, okay. So all of you must have worked in different types of organizations. And so you also have your own personal, I think, beliefs and experiences and observations and lessons which you must have learned. But generally, now I've tried to, if you look at global literature and Pakistani literature, I mean, there are few Pakistani case studies. Most of the literature is at a global level, but I've tried to put in some Pakistani perspective. So stage one is generally with very good intent. Some pioneers come who are highly skilled, who have good vision, and they are selfless. And for them, service is much better than profits. Of course, they're making profit, but they think that customer or the client or whoever or the society, they need their services and they need to provide that. And also they have tremendous support at all levels of decision making, policy making, ministries, politicians, prime minister. So like I said, when Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto became the prime minister, and those of you who are much older, I mean, I'm 63 years old, so I've seen before that and after that, that there was a major turning point in Pakistani society. Before 1971 or 72, we had a very different type of society. When he came in, he strengthened the public sector by setting up large number of corporations, steel mill, state engineering corporation, NESPAC, PPAC, I mean, so many organizations. And they had very bright people. And the whole idea was that the government, private sector at that time was mostly like retail business and small scale industry. Of course, Faisalabad and these places had textile, but in the government sector, the idea was that very professional organizations will be created and they'll provide services to the government as well as to the public and to the society at large. So this is how all of these organizations started. And this is how most other organizations also start, even in the private sector. People make NGOs with very good intent. Then what happens is, obviously, you come with good set of human resource, very good ideas, and you provide very good service. So obviously you have very high growth. Everybody wants to work for you. I've also experienced that. I've worked for a very good organization and then I've left also and I've seen them decay. Then obviously their service is very good and because they have all the top people and they're providing service. So obviously everybody's going there. Then next stage comes. Growth is very steady. There is no urgency to plan for the rainy days or to diversify or to keep on doing scenario planning, that what will happen 5 years down the road, what will happen 10 years down the road, how demands will change, how our supply should be modified. I mean, people don't do that because they assume that this is a perpetual, permanent source of income by doing what we have been doing. But society moves at a different pace and in different directions. It is not necessary that they would continue to demand what you have been doing. It is not necessary. And don't look at examples of जी जलंधर स्वीट हाउस एंड फलाना स्वीट हाउस कि जी वो तो 100 साल से चल रहा है और भाई मिठाई तो 100 साल से ही खाएंगे ना लोग, वो तो खाते ही रहेंगे, तो कभी नहीं होगा कि नहीं खाएंगे। तो उसके साथ एग्जाम्पल ना बनाए ना इंजीनियरिंग फर्म्स की और बड़ी दूसरी इंस्टीट्यूशंस की और एनजीओस की. Then what happens? Suddenly they find there is a crisis. Some good people are leaving. Your income is decreasing. Your clients are decreasing, or their demands are changing, which you cannot fulfill because some good people have left, and you are not able to. Still, you are able to manage. Stage number 4. Break even हो रहा है, कुछ हो रहा है. If you're not making a profit, at least you're surviving. Then disaster. There's no money for salaries. और अगर salaries के लिए है तो medical के लिए नहीं है. Medical के लिए है तो TADA के पैसे नहीं है. जेब से दे दें, बाद में ले लेना. You might have heard the University of Peshawar has now asked people, all staff from deans and vice to work at 50% salary. University of Peshawar, which is thousands and thousands of students and huge grants. ये 50% ले लें आइंदा कुछ महीने के लिए. Once they start taking 50%, then it will never change. So stage number 5 is that you find that you hardly have any clients. And these clients who still remain with you are low-level clients. They're not paying so much that you'll survive. So the last stage is generally you either close yourself, you become bankrupt. If you're not a government department, then it's an NGO, liquidation will happen, or in rare cases, you will reincarnate, you'll re-emerge. You must have seen many hotels, restaurants which are lousy, and then new management takes over, and then they start managing them properly. So these are general, this is your observation. I'm quite sure if you have worked in many places that now this does not apply to mostly ministries and permanent because they get money, they have guaranteed funding from the government. That's a different story. Whether they work, don't work, they will continue to remain because that's how the government is structured, and rightly so, because you just cannot run ministries as profit-making entities. You have to run systems. But other organizations in this country, in the private sector, in the public sector, like your organization and similar organizations, which are autonomous, so-called autonomous, I'm quite sure, because let's come to autonomy also. I mean, there's a very, very unusual term in Pakistan, autonomous and semi-autonomous. I mean, frankly, my observation is that I've worked with large NGOs also, and with federal government, provincial governments. I've sat in Peshawar for 5 years in planning and development, seen closely. There are two issues, major. These are not about any personalities, no personal comments. My apologies if somebody, but the board of directors which are set up, whether it is an NGO or a public sector organization, autonomous body, whatever. I find that boards are a major obstacle in development. It has been observed so many times in Pakistan. It's a major issue. Many people in the boards have direct conflict of interest with the organizations they're supposed to govern, which is disastrous. You simply cannot have those people and organizations. I've seen it so many times that people who have direct conflict of interest are on the boards. And decision making in the boards, very unusual, and type of analysis they do. I'm sorry. I mean, I feel sorry sometimes. There are very few boards I've seen which are really good, and but they're rare. Similarly, unfortunately, I work for the World Bank. I should not say that, but ministries are major obstacle in development. Why do you have to send everything there? Then don't call them autonomous bodies. Say these are part of the ministry. If everything again has to go there, a board has to see, and then a ministry has to see, and then it is unbelievable. This system is very unusual. And like I told you earlier, the DNA of ministries cannot be changed. They were designed to maintain status quo till the real decision maker, the white man, arrives. But now Pakistan is independent for 70 years now. So you don't need that system anymore. That was a requirement of that time, which is fine. That was fine for them. If I was them, I would also design that system. I would not give any authority to local people because I've conquered them. It's a colony, very frankly, it's a prison. So in a prison, why would I give rights to prisoners? Is that? So similarly, these autonomous bodies are prisons, I think, and the staff, because you have to please the board, then you have to please the ministry, then What about the society and your clients? When would you please them? They'll give you the money. So let's move on, because again, this will feature in a later slide. And I'm sorry, I'm frankly, I speak in a politically incorrect manner generally. Politically correct talking is usually used when you are in the presence of prime ministers and queens and kings. They used to talk in a very nice manner. And these are candid. I think you're all professionals, so we can be very candid. And because we are all Pakistanis and we want to see our country develop. We don't want to tell each other, oh yeah, everything is fine, without doing anything. So that is also needed. Everything is fine type of things are also needed sometimes, but not all the time. So we have to be very, very, and as engineers, as scientists, our job is to do analysis, to do research and look at cause-effect relationships and come up with new ideas. Otherwise, why did we spend so much money and energy on learning such complex subjects? We could have done something much simpler in life and led a very nice life. Anyhow, let's come to now the evolution of ecosystem within which engineering firms have operated in Pakistan since 1947 till today. So in the early 50s, obviously there was hardly any infrastructure and industrialization, because the biggest issue was the refugee crisis. There were millions of people who had migrated, their settlement and their rehabilitation, and because mostly Hindus and others had all the capital and all the skills, so they were managing so many things in this country. They all left, and businesses were in shambles. So it was a period when you just like emerging from a catastrophe. Pakistan was trying to stand on its feet and do something. So that was an era which has gone. Then we come to the 1960s. Pakistan became a major US ally, member of NATO and things. So, and private industrial development was promoted, Sagals in Faisalabad and so many others. And we talk about 22 families which controlled Pakistan in those days, and they had a lot of money. Obviously, these were people who even before Pakistan had money, contacts, and which is fine. I mean, it's not a problem to have money. And as long as you invest it properly, and people can also benefit and get jobs. This is how societies develop. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So otherwise, where would you go and what would you do? Not every individual has enough resources to be totally independent or self-independent, have own businesses. That's not possible. So in the 60s, Pakistan had a lot of industrial development, but still the consultancy businesses and these type of things were not at that level. Then we come to the 1970s. Like I mentioned earlier, large number of public sector industries were created and professional organizations were created by the government, which also gave rise to private sector's attention. And they also thought that highly qualified engineers from different government departments, they left early and then set up their own businesses and large consultancy firms also, because there was an era of development in their opinion. And so they also set up these. So we have this example of Descon and Engineering Associates in Karachi, and so many others in Lahore and other places. People set up these large, and they were not working in Pakistan only, they were working abroad also. Then we have 1980s. Because of the Afghan war, there was a huge influx of money into the country. And we again became a major US ally. There was good growth. GDP was growing because money was coming to the country. And you have a lot of businesses and organizations like NESPAC and others. They did tremendous work and really good work. And you can see that all over the country, the contribution they made. Not only NESPAC, but other government organizations and private sector consultancy firms also. Because remember, when there is money around, then even like people who are not very well qualified or well skilled, even they find something to do, and they also have a stimulus, and they can also see a future in front of them. So they exert more energy. They try to perform even better. If they used to be 50% good, maybe they'll become 60% good, 65% good, or from 30% to they will become 50% good, because there's money around them. They see opportunities. They jump from one place to another where they can fit easily. If they cannot do very highly complex engineering drawings, they go to another place where they do less complex drawings and get better money. Then we come to the 1990s, and sorry, there's an extra zero in 2000. Then it says 2002, I don't know, 2002, but it should be 2000s. We had a lot of GDP, the gross domestic product grew a lot in Pakistan. But then you found that there was a lot of there were too many firms, engineering firms in Pakistan. Suddenly you found a lot of competition also, a lot of bidding and winning on the basis of your low prices. We also saw organizations like Descon decaying, not making much progress, but because they have so many other Descons in other parts of the world, in the Middle East, others, and they make a lot of money for them. So even if the Pakistani company was not working a lot, it didn't matter much, because they could collectively have profit when they calculated the profit of all their companies. Then in the last 3-4 years, what do we see? We see that government has less and less money. And there are too many players in the market. There's less of business. There's more accountability drive, so which stops people from taking decisions. Investments are low. Government is not, and in any case, government has never been a good paymaster, but in the last 10 years, I've seen that getting payments from the government has become a major issue. There are defaulters on a large number. You see in the newspapers every day, all these cases. The plane has been like seized in some country, some other place. I mean, these are all cases of not making payments. That's about it. I mean, there's no rocket science there. There's nothing wrong in those contracts. We're fine, but they just don't pay. So how do organizations, I've seen so many private sector consultancy firms going bankrupt right in front of my eyes. They were not paid by the government. They have already spent, they took loans to survive, and they've gone bankrupt totally. They fired hundreds of people. So there's a major issue now that government does not have, but people have to realize that we do not anymore have the charity model. Charity model was, I'm sorry for using this word, but because I can't find a better word right now. So the model of business was like this, that organizations in the public sector, the autonomous organization, they totally relied on government business. Government will give us business, whether we are good or bad. Then government will pay us also, whether we deliver properly or improperly. And by government, I mean that even government universities and others, they may hire you to do something. And people thought that this is, and there was little effort to go out to the public. We have 220 million people. There's a lot of money in Pakistan. In case you did not know, we were 2 years ago 26th largest economy of the world, 26th largest economy of the world, which is not a joke. And all projections say that in the next 10, 15 years, that I'm talking of 3 years ago, that Pakistan will be among the top 15 economies of the world. Now I don't know what is the analysis, not even seen that. But the model was that you relied totally on government money. So a guaranteed money, like working like a ministry, working like a civil servant, that whether you work or don't work, you will still be paid, because there's permanent liability signed with you by the government. When you go to the Public Service Commission, you become a DMG officer or a police officer, income tax officer. There's a contract by the government that till your retirement, they will pay you. It's not possible to fire you. It's a very difficult process to fire incompetent civil servant who's come through a proper process. It's not possible. I mean, I've gone through that, been in the government, I've seen it's a very cumbersome process. Government doesn't want to put in it. So what I'm saying is that the idea was that government will remain rich and you will keep on giving money or business to organization it itself created. But like I said, there was a lot of private sector competition also. They're also there in the market. The heavy engineering complex in Texas, I mean, it's not the sole player in the world in Pakistan anymore. Many years ago, so many other private sector fabricators also came in the market who had much more advanced systems and professionals. So obviously, uh, if you don't grow according to the market needs, you don't survive. So now what the environment is like this, that if you're totally relying on government money, by the way, in case you should not know, Pakistan's GDP is about $300 billion, and out of which a very small proportion is because of government or with the government. It's a very small. The rest is outside the government sphere. So the real business is outside the government. No more it's with the government. It's no more a lucrative market, the government sector, that you'll get businesses from there. No, it's very difficult right now. Although they can still be, but their current model in Pakistan, the 3, 4, 5 years in the past year, is a very different model. It's no more a development-oriented model, because somehow because remember, although I told you that there's tremendous amount of money, we have 26th largest economy of the world, but we do not pay taxes. One of the lowest percentage of tax versus GDP is in Pakistan. People do not pay. So when they do not pay, government does not get that money. So that money remains in the open, outside government sector, and it is available to be captured. That money is tremendous amount of money is there. Banks in Pakistan are loaded with money, but they have nowhere to invest that money. That's why you get telephone calls every day that do you want to get a cash or easy cash or this cash or whatever. It's a very funny situation. Banks are I work with so many banks all the time as part of my job, and I know they're loaded with money, and but they have no idea where to invest that money, because banks are designed to invest and make 20% profit and then give you 4% profit. That's their model. But they also have a problem. What do they do with this money? Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is the working environment we have just seen, that where are we operating and what is the benefit of this ecosystem to us. Next slide, please. Yeah, I remember I mentioned to you that so there's a Pakistani gentleman, his name is Dr. Adil Najam. Some of you might know him. He's a civil engineer from UET Lahore, and I've known him since he was a child. He's a full professor in one of the major US universities. He's been there for many years. He's a global authority on climate change, environment, and so many future planning. So recently what he did was that he talked to 100 top people of this world who take this, like an ex-director of CIA and ministers of different countries. So many things he has done. So he wrote a very interesting article. The article is about what has changed after COVID-19 and what are the implications for society at large and for organizations and businesses and private individuals. So he says there are 4 things which have happened. Number 1, there is accelerated disruption. Disruption does not mean, it's not a negative word. Disruption is another term we use for change. Things keep on changing around us. Look at yourself. When you were a child, things were different. When I was a child, I could not go to a mosque without a cap and without a shalwar kameez. But now you go to mosque, people are wearing suits, trousers, no caps. Nobody says anything. Things change. I went to university, UET Lahore in 1975. There were no calculators. We only had slide rules. I could not use a slide rule. So 5 years I spent there doing manual calculations, because calculators came in 76 or 77. They're terribly expensive, so you could not buy them. So, but now, the calculator is in your cell phone and everywhere, and everything is available. Technology has intervened, but we don't see these changes because they're very subtle changes. But now he says there will be very accelerated disruption, very, very high speed changes around us. You cannot function exactly as you did before COVID-19. I'm surprised. When I go out, I see hundreds of these food panda people on the street. Previously, you couldn't see so many. These restaurants, we thought government has stopped people from dining inside. Now their delivery system is so good that I think they're making twice the money now. They changed their way of businesses, and they're very happy because now they don't need to pay huge rents for those restaurant spaces. They operate as kitchens now only, and they don't need to invest in furniture and butlers and crockery. So, so there will be, so in every area of our lives, he says that you will see very rapid changes. Previous changes were slow. So slow changes you cannot feel, and you only feel them when the disaster hits you. But accelerated disruption is even worse because then you have no time to even think. So number two, he says that there will be, the political and governance system will be very turbulent. They will always be in emergency mode now, and they will be less focus on long-term planning and more focus on uh, short-term uh, coping strategies. So relying on these stable political and governmental systems, if you look at Europe and other places, their economies are in shambles. We are huge country, so thanks God we didn't have COVID at that level, uh, which, or maybe we are more resilient, or maybe more tolerant to these, or maybe we are not even reporting in small towns and other places people are dying, and we are not perhaps reporting that. And I have this, but what it has done is that governments and governance systems will be now focusing more on coping with, because they say that whenever a pandemic of this magnitude comes, then what happens is that its impacts are felt for at least 10 years, and they bring about changes which are quite drastic, and they're not visible. Because interestingly, like I told you, that in Pakistan, government is poor, but the society is richer. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody is rich, but there's much more money, 100 times more money out in society. So perhaps people have more coping strategies, and they are doing something which is able to manage them. But if you, organization like NESPAC and OGDC and PSO, they're relying on a very stable governance system to bail them out, then probably they will not be successful, because governments will be focused more on coping with fallout of COVID on economy and society. Then another observation which he makes, or a prediction he makes, is that the SOPs for COVID, which were felt by us as being very harsh, will become lifestyle, and there will be a totally new way of doing work. So I work for the World Bank, and for the past 9 months, our office is closed. We are working from home, and we found that we actually don't need this huge office space. We need much smaller, and we need to invest in people, giving them technology at their home so they can sit there properly. And we have been able to perhaps design better projects in shorter time, because we don't go to office and gossip. Everybody in Pakistani society, going to office means that you will gossip, definitely gossip. You will go to each other's room, have tea, and then you will badmouth your seniors without any ill intent. And maybe when you see the senior, you salute him. This is how we operate. I mean, perhaps it has no meaning, that bad mouthing, but this is a traditional way of working. That people go here and there and sit at coffee shop or whatever, or each other's room and talk. And but now we found that we're much more productive, and perhaps they will never open these offices, and they will create these hubs and do away with these buildings and infrastructures, and pay more and give more technology, better laptops and better video cameras, and other parks, which are a fraction of a cost of paying rent and hiring. Although I'm very sorry that a large number of support staff, I think they will lose their jobs ultimately. What will they do? So we'll have to think about that. Another prediction, which is a good prediction, is that like all previous catastrophes, Corona also creates new opportunities. In case you didn't know, you know that in First World War and Second World War, what did they do? They changed one major thing in Europe and other countries, not in Asia. The class system was eliminated. The system of servants was eliminated. There is no concept of in the between First World War and Second World War, and other places in Europe, people had servants, 4, 5, 6. No more servants. That's the end of it. The class system. Why did the class system get eliminated? Because they had tens and millions of deaths in those wars, and all types of people at all levels they were killed. So they had to create new societies. We are lucky. I mean, Corona did not have that sort of an impact. We only have 10,000 deaths here. If you look at road accidents and deaths due to TB and other diseases, it's much larger. If you look at neonatal deaths, deaths within the first 28 days of the birth of a child, we are among the top 3 countries in the world. Highest number of neonatal deaths in the world. It's India, China, Pakistan. Highest percentage, highest numbers. These are the 3 worst countries in the world. If you look at socioeconomic indicators of Pakistan, forget about Corona, even before Corona, Pakistan is one of the worst socio-economic indicators, equivalent to Somalia and Afghanistan. It is unbelievable. Look at our infrastructure. Look at our number of professional doctors and facilities. We are one of the only countries in the world which is food secure, and we have highest number of malnutrition. It's a emergency situation. Stunting, wasting, it's unbelievable. Stunting and wasting are in children. These are terrible things. Please Google that and you see Pakistan is one of the rare countries that has abundant food supplies. It's a huge agriculture country. So our societal issues are mind-boggling. I mean, they're never debated, never discussed, but it's unbelievable. The maternal death rates, so many other, and they're all because of bad infrastructure. Bad infrastructure. Again, I'm saying. So Corona will create tremendous opportunities also for in a world which is going to be Corona safe. And engineering firms and other organizations have huge opportunities if they can capitalize on that. Can we move on to the last slide, I think, perhaps? And then we can perhaps have a discussion. Because listening to somebody like this is quite an ordeal, and people should be given medals for that. Please, can you move on to the next slide? Yes. Okay, so this is the last slide, but it has some interesting ideas. What do these engineering firms do now? We have seen that how they used to operate in a very nice environment, how that working environment has changed. And there are problems all around, but there are always, within chaos, you always get new opportunities. First of all, the work style has to change. It has to be very decentralized. It's no more, basically in Pakistan, offices operate like factories. In factories, people have to actually physically come and they have to stand near different machines or different processing units and manage things half manually, half technology based. And there is no concept in Pakistani factories that you'll be sitting at home and doing work. It's not like a World Bank job that I'm sitting at home, I'm designing projects, then I'm sending to my boss who's looking at it, he's sending to somebody else. No, it's not like that. That's a different way of work. Some things, for some things you have to actually and physically, but sorry. I have to reject that. There was some chaos. Can you hear me now? I can't see the slide. Can you hear me?
Ji sir, you please.
But I can't see the slides.
The slides.
Yeah, now I can see. Thank you. So basically, you have to look at decentralized way of working, smaller offices, highly professional teams, which are well equipped. Technology is provided to them. You're now available around the clock. I'm not saying NESPAC. I'm saying generally now people in Pakistan operate or at least make available some sort of facility where you can interact with that organization, either through a website or through helpline or call center. But please remember, in these days, you cannot fire people. Do not. I mean, I'll tell you something. In case you didn't read, This year's economic Nobel Prize was given to Esther Duflo, a French lady, and her husband, who's an Indian, Abhijit Banerjee. I don't know if anybody is aware. These two economists work for MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they've been working for the past 10 years. And their work over the past 10 years had turned the subject of poverty and economics upside down. They say that for national progress, you have to give jobs to people. Everybody is not an entrepreneur. It's a theory, just a myth that the poor are entrepreneurs. Everybody's an entrepreneur. No, if that was true, then I would be doing a business. All of you who are listening today to me would all be doing their own business and not listening to me at all. You'll be listening to yourself. That's also a great sign of greatness, that you listen to yourself and not listen to somebody else. That's not sign of greatness according to one theory, although I don't believe in that. So Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee say that providing one job creates direct benefit for 10 people and hope for 100 people. So when what happens is, when crisis comes and you say that we want to restructure, which is another word for getting rid of people. Restructuring means getting rid of people. It never means improving yourself, frankly, in Pakistan at least. So what will happen? Your top people who are good will leave themselves immediately. Nobody wants to be on a sinking ship. You'll be left with lousy people. The people who will not find any job will remain. So on paper, you would have gotten rid of 20% people who are the top people who themselves left and found better jobs somewhere. So you'll be left with even worse situation, because remember, like in many countries of the world, and it's another study which shows that in all organizations, about 20% of people do the work of rest of the 80% people. And the rest of 80% survive because of these 20% people. Now, somebody might say that, why don't you get rid of those 80% and just retain those 20%? The problem is that that's not actually possible, because you need lots of people to do lots of even lousy things also. So, but in Pakistani case, I've seen that 10% of people in every organization are the ones who are earning everything, who are visionaries, who have ideas, who can do a lot of things, who are highly skilled. And because of them, the entire organization survives. So when you say that we want to restructure, we want to get rid of people, it's very, very disastrous strategy. I was just telling Sabika that PIA says that we want to fire 4,500 or 2,500 people and give them voluntary blah blahs, whatever it is called. Frankly, the best people would have already left. They would not wait for that day when they will receive a letter. They will find jobs somewhere. Something they will find, and PIA will be left with really bad people, and that's a recipe for disaster. So anyhow, adopt new work style. That depends on each organization, how they would adapt, how they would make sure that their operating expenditures are reduced. Maybe you can these private sector organizations can afford leasing out their offices and asking people to work from home and earning money, and then also finding new ways of working, and which actually suits many people. I'm working for 9 months from home, and I found that this is a very good system, because working 9 to 5 does not suit everyone. And many people who drop their children to school, their wives to work, take their parents to hospital, do something in the morning and come back, and they are ready to sit till late. But our system say, no, you are not here at 9 o'clock, so you didn't come today. I mean, there's so many things where you can be more employer friendly and adopt new working style because of COVID, and let people manage work and life properly by putting in X number of hours a day in a staggered manner, in a flexi time system. We do not need everybody to be there at the same time all the time, when you don't need them actually to be there all the time, and assigning tasks in a different manner. So anyhow, it's a different science which is emerging now, and people are working on it. Then you have to develop new business models. What was the previous model? Previous model was that we will have few clients like the government of Pakistan, and they will give us few large projects, which is fine. And no, now you have to look at ways in which uh, this model is not going to work. Like I told you earlier, there's no more uh, money with the government, or government might say that yes, we have ideas, we have requirement, we have no money, but can you raise money? One way of I'll come to that, how to raise money also from society, because remember, if there is a need in society for something, society will pay for that. You see every day people going to these development authorities to get their building plans approved and completion certificate. Everybody pays there. It's a huge requirement. It's bad, it's corruption, but that's how. But but this is how people operate. Nobody has time, and they want to say that I don't want to spend 6 months. Let me pay and get rid of these guys. I'll never come to this office ever again, which is fine. And they do that. Similarly, you have to change your products and services. I mean, by you, I don't mean, sorry, NESPAL. I'm seeing that organizations have to really see, they have to see what are the larger societal and economic issues in this country. Energy is a huge issue in Pakistan. Housing is a major issue. Water is a major issue. Basic infrastructure. I mean, if you look at even the electrical transmission distribution system, its optimization is main thing. Your circular debt is increasing because of bad infrastructure. Investing in these will get rid of circular debt. Otherwise, you will keep on accumulating these large debts on our economy and on the government system. What are innovative ideas? Who's proposing any innovative ideas? Energy is such a big issue, and water and housing, that it's mind-boggling that people do not have any creative ideas. Large engineering firms could join hands with the government to float bonds or shares to say that we are making low-cost, energy-efficient, climate-friendly housing units for middle-income people. It's a huge demand in this country. Government can pay you maybe 10 or 20%, and if you float shares, I mean, you can raise billions of rupees. I mean, I'm very sure that if large public sector organizations float housing schemes which are well managed, people will forget about these private schemes, which are frankly taking a lot of money from people. I know so much about these private large investors in housing schemes and what type of malpractices are they doing and how they're fleecing public. I think this is a huge area in which energy efficient and totally run on renewable energy, these small housing units, there's such a huge demand for that. And but since no reliable party is in the field, these are fly by the night type of entities which keep, when you look at these huge ads, when I look big ads, I say, oh, the size of the ad shows that the organization does not exist. It's on paper type of entity. So there's so many things for which these are societal needs, which engineering firms need to look at and fill the gap. Similarly, new types of clients. I mean, in Pakistan, the middle class, forget about the poor and vulnerable. Maybe smaller engineering firms can find solutions for them. But the middle class, Pakistan is a huge middle class, and they have a lot of disposable income. They have a lot of brains to invest in their future. There are so many ideas which can be promoted and floated to raise resources. It's not an issue at all. There are private banks who are, I just told you, they're loaded with money. They're looking for ideas. I mean, uh, I cannot even tell you, I mean, how desperate they are to join hands with organizations and provide them billions of rupees. PIA and everybody, that keep on taking billions of rupees of loans from these private banks because they have your money, my money, and they have no place where they invest. So they just give it as a loan to the government at high interest rates. But that is not how economy will ever progress, because they are investing in loss-making entities. But government has given them guarantee that, and they mortgage these. You must have read in the papers that government wants to mortgage the F9 park in Islamabad to raise some money. This is very common practice. They mortgage because, frankly, the bonds and shares which the government of Pakistan floats in international local market, they're called junk bonds. They have no value, very frankly. There's nothing behind them. There's no gold reserve or other reserves behind them. So what is done is that the company which floats these shares, and these are international organizations and consortium banks, they ask the government to give them or mortgage their properties with it, so that they can auction it if in case government does not pay the interest or return the principal amount. This is a common practice around the world for poor countries, and it's not something unique. Or this is a common practice, and people just say that. Just like bonded labor, when poor people take loans and later on they cannot repay, then the brick owners and other people that kidnap or not kidnap, but just take 50 of these people and say, put them to hard labor and calculate that in 20 years you'll be able to pay these 50,000 rupees and we'll set you free. And there are a lot of hue and cry about it, but that's how this is the economic model for the poor. They are fine, and they know that they will be doing hard labor later on, but they take that loan because they have to. They have so many other requirements. So anyhow, that's a different story. What I'm saying is that I'm not even talking about Pakistan's natural resource base and the mines, minerals. That's a political issue. Oil and gas under the ground. I'm just saying of private citizens' needs, simple need like good housing in a good location, even if it's 20 kilometers away from the city, and you run beautiful buses and make roads, people will be happy to live there and part with their monies, and banks are ready to invest. So these type of ideas are things which I don't think anybody is working on that. And again, also look at how Pakistan's economy grows, the gross domestic product. What contributes to our economy? Although interestingly, because we're an agricultural country, basically, primarily 60% of contribution to our economy is through the natural resource base of the country. Natural resources is your forest, water resources, other resources. And then of course the service sector and productive sector, industrial sector, they're not that big, but still they are contributors. Develop these. Think of political ownership of these ideas. Study what are the burning needs of society, burning needs of the government. How can you fill that gap? Energy, circular debt, these are huge issues. How can you contribute to that? What are the engineering solutions to that? People are thinking of financial solution, taking loan and getting rid of the problem, but that re-emerges next year again, because that loan, its installments, all of you who have ever taken loans or made huge expenditures on credit cards, you do realize that when the bill comes next month, then you are suddenly surprised to see that huge amount which you have to repay, and then next month another one comes. So I think that engineering profession provides tremendous potential for solutions to our economic issues in this country. The need is to, I've done a lot of work on that. Other people have done in World Bank, other places. I mean, a lot of Pakistanis have done tremendous amount of work. I mean, there are a lot of ideas out there which do not rely on total government contribution. They rely on raising money from society and providing solutions which are actually solving the issues also. So I think I'll just stop here for the moment, because I think I've talked too much, I think. And it may be a good idea if we can have your thoughts also on these, ask questions, maybe challenge some of the ideas. That'll be very interesting. And there are some questions already, I think I'll look at them on the chat. Okay, no, this is about filling an evaluation form. Okay, so I'll just stop here and mute my mic for the moment.
Let's start the video first. Video is. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. Definitely, it's going to be helping a lot for reputable engineers around, and they have truly understood, and they've really got into this evolution of the ecosystem and they had been able to understand that how can we adopt this new work lifestyles. And I truly agree with the things when I was hearing the presentation that this pandemic crisis is definitely lasting for another 10 years. And in this entire scenario, we need to be empathetic. We need to be decentralized, technology, network driven, 24-hour service, and we need to be more, creating such basic infrastructure that could be helping in engineering infrastructure for the poor people around. And I ask the people if they are coming up with any question answer session. But at the moment, so we have one question from our engineer that in your period of evaluation of ecosystem, we have missed one thing. We have been missed with one period, that is 2002 to 2016. They are asking, is there any specific reason, like because right after 2002, you have jumped to last 4 years, and we have skipped that period of 2002 to 16. So there's one question around. Uh, so, uh,
Okay, because you had muted me, so I could not talk.
Oh,
I'm very
yeah.
Actually, you're very correct. From 2000 to 2016 was missing. I'm very sorry for that. I don't know. That was there was no ill intention behind it. And let me describe. This was an era marked with very high growth in Pakistan. Very high growth. There are allegations of corruption also in this era. But please remember one thing. All around the world, even in USA, I lived in Japan for 4 years, and 3 of their prime ministers have gone to jail on corruption. It's a society where crime is unthinkable. But when you have large infrastructure developments, huge investments, people get involved, political. Remember, you cannot work in a country like Pakistan, not in Japan, even USA, unless the political system, the civil service system, and the professional system, they are together as partners, not as enemies of each other. If you want to play enemy, that you can also play. Remember, on basic fact of life, number 1 was everything is possible. It is possible to be your own enemy. It is possible to your own friend. It is possible to be working against your country by fighting with everybody. It's possible to build your country by joining hands. When you join hands, there are always allegations of corruption. And it is not possible that people are all Abdul Sattar Idis in this world and they're working for free. Everybody is working for something. I've met all US senators and congressmen. They all represent American businesses around the world. That is how they progress. I mean, how do you think all these civilizations developed in this world? All the Muslim empires around the world, they were not sitting at home and reciting Holy Quran. They were going out and conquering and capturing resources. They were not going there just for the sake of tourism. They captured natural resources. Natural resources जिसके पास होते हैं वो दुनिया का सबसे अमीर मुल्क होता है. जिसके पास तेल होता है वो होता है. Not like पाकिस्तान की जी हमारे 50 टीवी चैनल हैं, हम बहुत डेवलप्ड हैं. नहीं भाई नहीं, उससे नहीं मुल्क तरक्की करते. छोड़ दें इन बातों को. आप किसी टीवी चैनल में जाके ना एक नौकरी ले सकते हैं, ना अपेंडिक्स का ऑपरेशन करवा सकते हैं, कुछ भी नहीं करा सकते वहां से. तो इस तरह नहीं होते इंडिकेटर्स ऑफ सक्सेस. जी हमारे पास सफाई वाले के पास स्मार्टफोन होता है, लेकिन वो सफाई नहीं करता ना, ये भी तो मसला है सारा. नहीं करता, बस सीधी बात है. ये क्या कहानी है कि उसके पास स्मार्टफोन, तो हम क्या करें? तो मतलब है कि ये तो कोई है ही नहीं ना. हम रंग बिरंगे इंडिकेटर्स बताते हैं लोगों को, रंग बिरंगे इंडिकेटर्स बताते. तो वो 16 ईयर्स में बहुत ग्रोथ हुई पाकिस्तान. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में एनर्जी का क्राइसिस आप सोच नहीं सकते थे कहां से कहां पहुंच गया. जरूर पैसे बनाए होंगे. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि जी ये नेचुरल फिनोमेना है ना, ये बनाते हैं.
We are blessed to have a Pakistan with all natural resources. It's just a question of, developing and enhancing the things in an appropriate way. Sir, we are coming up to the next, another query. That how can we operate in pandemic as an engineering consultancy, because being working individually is easy from home, but what about the engineers, or architects who work in groups? That's another very interesting one.
It's a very good question because obviously आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं. ये वो नहीं है कि everything can be done from home. It is simply not possible. You have to brainstorm. You have to sit together. You have to look at each other's work. You have to lend support. What is happening is that, look, what were the two or three major instructions when COVID came? Wear a mask, maintain social distance, and wash your hands continuously. These were the three messages. So what people are doing is that they are now saying that let 50% of staff come or 25% of staff come to office. In the World Bank, it's not that we are permanently closed. Out of hundreds of people, 10 people go there every day. Country director has to go, his staff has to go, one person in finance, but they are very far away now. Those rooms, I mean, people are not sitting so close to each other. And in larger conference room, where 20 people used to sit, now 4 or 5 sit together and work on a particular project. So I don't think that usually a group in which 20 people are sitting together is highly non-productive. When 3 or 4 people are sitting together, they perform much better. So I think as engineers, we'll find ways of creating environment. I mean, this is our job. This is our job. You will see very soon that restaurants will open and you'll have these plastic screens to save you from each other for the next table. Perhaps something will be designed by engineers in which you can see other people, but you cannot actually be infected if they are sick or something. So there will be a lot of things which will happen. So I think you're very right. Lesser number of people come to the office. You can have better cleanliness levels in your office so that infection is not, and maybe you'll have some sort of infrared or thermal devices will be created, which will give you instant indication whether a person is infected. Because right now what is happening is that you go for your PCR test, it will take 24 hours, but you cannot afford doing that in offices now, and it's very expensive. So perhaps just like, remember, we go through a metal detector normally, and instantly it tells you whether you're carrying something which can be hazardous. So similarly, I think very soon engineers will come up with thermal scanners or some things which will scan your body and tell.
True, definitely, sir. We can hope.
So perhaps I think this is something on which we firms can. But your point is very well taken.
Yeah, we can truly hope with such innovations in the longer run, sir. As well, sir. We are left with like 5 to 7 minutes more. So we have we have our very reputable former Vice President, Mr. Suhail Kibria, and he has asked us you want to ask the question by himself. So I am opening his mic.
Most welcome.
Yeah. So, Assalamu alaikum, sir Suhail. The mic is open. You can have, please.
Assalamu alaikum ji. As told by Sabika, Suhail Kibria, former Vice President, Geotechnical Engineering, and currently Head of Research and Development in NESPAC. I've listened to your very inspirational and very motivational talk too, and you have touched many different facets and many different areas where one has to strike individually as well as collectively. My particular question to you is that we know corona pandemic is there and it will be over too. We are surviving in a society which has issues. There are no good systems, even public transport system is not there, even billing system is not appropriate, and many other things. So without pointing out at those, we as NESPAC, we have been surviving as a premier organization. We have union also. We are semi-autonomous and we have an operating union here too, which has its own agenda. What do you think in these circumstances, this organization which is having about 4,500 people and doing engineering consultancy work, surviving historically and culturally on big mega projects earned from government on single source basis in a number of occasions, now facing salary problems too. What is the big message in this downturn? What is the upside, in your opinion, for NESPAC management to look at?
Thank you, sir. It is a very, very strategic question. And thank you for asking that. So I think that, like I said, that your previous business model needs to change. The previous business model relied on government being kind and government having a lot of money to invest in large projects, and for which they would hire organizations like NESPARK to provide consultancy services. So, but as you can see right now, I mean, in the past 3-4 years, we see that government is less interested in investing actual money into projects. It does not have even money. Very frankly, it does not have money. It has such a huge drain. They have taken so many loans that debt servicing and other things do not leave anything. So even if they are able to pay salaries of permanent government servants who have constitutional guarantees, NESPARK does not have a constitutional guarantee that everybody will be paid. It's an autonomous body, which means that you're not like those civil servants who come through public service commission and then till retirement, government has a permanent liability is created. I mean, in finance, Ministry of Finance creates an individual permanent liability for that position. That government of Pakistan, as a sovereign state, guarantees. So you have a different model. Now, if government does not have money, but government has an obligation to provide services to the people, how can it provide those services through organizations like NESPARK? And NESPARK has to then come up with ideas that you will raise money from the private sector, from the banks as joint collaborators where you will do turnkey projects. It's not an era anymore of just providing advice. If you go to a very good doctor will not let you go to a lab or a pharmacy. Everything will be under one roof now. You go there and he will give you 20 tests and which are done by his cousin, and then his brother-in-law is running the pharmacy. So you have to, like I gave you a simple example, housing. Forget about large infrastructure development like roads and transmission and distribution system improvement. These are long-term things which no political government within 3 or 4 years can even take a decision on, let alone, you know it very well. You float an idea, it will take 2 or 3 years for Ministry of Energy to take a decision even, or for a PC1 to be created. Housing is an area, water is an area where private resources can be mobilized, private collaborators can be made. I told you that energy efficient, climate friendly, low cost, do research on materials. How can you use low cost materials to produce houses which are affordable, for which financing is available? All the private banks are loaded with money now. They have no place to invest that money. They used to invest in industries and other places. They're not investing, and they have huge issue now of liquidity. So I think a model where you will raise, let's say 50% of your budget through private sources and 50% government gives, or whatever government gives. I do not know how much they can afford paying right now. And then that will create thousands and thousands of jobs. It will reinvigorate lots of industries, vendor industries, which are associated with housing. I'm just using example of housing because that's of immediate interest to individuals. And it will actually, this Naya Pakistan housing and this housing, I mean, those things, these are just, I mean, frankly, in my personal opinion, I don't foresee. Just like the federal government employs housing authority and others, they've never done anything, I mean, frankly, except their entire energy is spent in buying land and not making anything. Buying land is a very lucrative business. So I think this is one area. And based on your expertise, my problem is that I cannot talk to you about water, small dams, other. These are things which require a lot of political support, and they're long-term things. They cannot be done within the life of a political government, which is 3 to 4 years, not 5 years ever. So these are some areas where you can actually join hands with investors, reliable large banks who will be more than happy. And a name like NESPARK will beat Barrier Town and others in one night, because people rely still on the government of Pakistan. You go to Qaumi Bachat Daftar, any branch, they're lousiest possible building, and they have loaded with money. Everybody goes there. Everybody goes there. Nobody goes to these fancy banks to invest their money. They all go to these because government's name is there. There's still people have faith in government systems. So this is one simple example I've given you. Maybe you could continue, Sohail Saab, if you have any other idea. This.
So I think we are ending towards our question answer session. It's been a wonderful, wonderful. We are truly overwhelmed having you on our NESPARC prestigious place. And I'm sure you also must have been comfortable enough in delivering your session with our people around. And I'm truly grateful. Our entire HR team was really glad to have you on our training platform. And I'm truly thankful for, and I'm pleased by my participants as well, who have been adding lots of informative knowledge by renowned experts in their areas of expertise. And thank you, sir, once again. We'll definitely be in touch with you. We'll definitely be contacting you for another valuable session in upcoming months. And that's all for today, sir. And definitely we'll be sharing the feedback of our participants with you in a couple of, inshallah, next week, sir, inshallah. And right now, just take the best care of your health. Good luck for your credentials. Good luck for your future aspects and everything. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you to all our participants. Let's have another session in February. Stay tuned for another lots of training series coming up on. Thank you, sir. Thank you, and Allah Hafiz. Take care.
My pleasure.